The Kansas City Chiefs might have found their next gem in Justyn Ross, but in all honesty, this doesn't really surprise me. I hope at least a couple of Chiefs fans out there remember a video I posted last year during this time about Ross and how he was impressing me in the spring during OTAs and minicamp. He had a super viral one-handed catch which got his name circulating and having NFL fans reminisce on his amazing freshman season at Clemson. And what he did at the collegiate level had a lot of people believing he was going to be the NFL's next top wide receiver. He had 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns as a true freshman with a staggering 21.7 yards per catch, including 153 yards and a touchdown in the national championship game against Alabama. He did that against his secondary that had Patrick Surtain, Trayvon Diggs, and Xavier McKinney at 19 years old. I'm sure everyone who knows a little bit about college football has seen some of the catches he made specifically in that game, and they were ridiculous. But regardless, he came back for his sophomore season and had yet another good campaign, this time putting up 865 yards and 8 touchdowns, and because of what he did in his first 2 years, the hype for him heading into the 2020 season was off the charts. He was projected to easily be a first-round pick and maybe even one of the top receivers off the board. That would be until something life-changing happened for Justyn Ross in practice for the Clemson Tigers. This incident happened after a routine hit in a practice, causing Ross to feel numbness in both of his arms. He was quickly diagnosed with congenital fusion of 2 vertebrae in his neck, a condition known as Klippel-Feil syndrome. And originally, after he got this diagnosis of this condition, he was told that this would prevent him from continuing his football career. The doctor that actually did the operation was Dave Okonkwo. He's the same neurosurgeon who operated on Ryan Shazier of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I'm sure everybody knows if you are familiar with Shazier, he was paralyzed by an injury he suffered on Monday Night Football against the Cincinnati Bengals in 2017, but the surgery performed by Okonkwo actually allowed him to regain the ability to walk. So going into the procedure, Ross had hope that Okonkwo could save his football career, and in hindsight, the only good thing that might have come out of the surgery and its timing was discovering and treating it before a more serious injury or worse took place on the football field. The outcome of surgery was actually very positive, and Ross was given 2 real options: retire from the sport he loves or have a long road to recovery and have a little bit more added risk every time he steps onto the gridiron. But Ross was not ready to hang up his cleats, and he was set on returning and really fulfilling his dream to play in the NFL. As a result, he would spend over a year on rehab and would eventually return to the field for Clemson's 2021 season. And although Ross didn't look exactly like the same player he was just 3 years prior, he still put up 500 yards and 3 touchdowns in 10 games, which felt like such an amazing accomplishment due to everything that he'd been through in just the past couple of years. But unfortunately, Ross would still not be able to catch a break. He would end up getting a stress fracture in his foot, ending his season, and again, bringing Ross down to square one. So we went into the draft with a ton of medical red flags, and while Ross knew he probably wasn't going to be drafted because of it, he just simply wanted a chance to showcase his talent he once showed the entire nation. It's since been reported that medical staffs of only 4 NFL teams actually cleared him to play, meaning 28 teams didn't even have him on their board. But even those 4 teams who did clear him weren't willing to invest a draft pick to select him, so Ross ended up going undrafted, which I think now might have been a blessing in disguise for him. But regardless, the Kansas City Chiefs would sign Justyn Ross to an undrafted free agent contract in what really was a low-risk, high-reward move for the team. Unfortunately, Ross didn't really recover from his foot surgery as expected, so right after some of his highlights in minicamp and OTAs, Ross had to have his second surgery on his foot, which forced the team to put him on season-ending IR, and that was before their training camp in the preseason even began. But he spent all of last season getting healthy once again, and so far this training camp, he has been one of the best stories in the entire National Football League. There have been numerous highlights all across social media similar to his crazy catch in practice last year. I've seen a one-handed grab in the back of the end zone against a corner in a one-on-one drill. He showed off his great release and then his great body control and hands to come down with the catch. We saw his footwork and route running on full display in another one-on-one drill where he got the corner completely out of place before making a nice catch on the sideline. The most viral one, however, was a nasty comeback route where he stopped on a dime, having the corner fly by, giving him enough time to literally wipe his hands on his towel before catching the ball. There's also been numerous clips of contested catches he has made in 7-on-7 and even 11-on-11, and it's gotten to the point where almost every single day there's a new clip now of Ross making a play. As a result, people are starting to take notice, and that includes both Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you know, the 2 most important people on the Chiefs. Mahomes was asked about Ross and what he's been able to do so far this summer, and he said he has had a good one. Learning the offense fast, you can tell he has been in the offense for a year now. Obviously, he's making big plays, he's getting more involved in those first team reps. He's a guy that I hope can be a really good player in this offense. Andy Reid basically co-signed what Patrick Mahomes said, saying 2022 was a redshirt year that Ross probably didn't want to have right with the injury, but he's done a nice job. He had a good offseason, and then he's worked his tail off here, and he just needs to keep doing that. You know, it's how you answer the bell every day and push through it, so he's got the right mindset to do that. So the Justyn Ross hype is the highest it's been since his amazing performance in the national championship 5 years ago, and now it's about what he does with this opportunity. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of him in the preseason, and that'll really make or break his chance to be on the final 53-man roster. And the wide receiver core for the Chiefs is practically wide open. It's been well documented on how much turnover they had on their skill position group from a season ago. Their 3 leading wide receivers in 2021 were future Hall of Famer Tyreek Hill, who they traded away to the Miami Dolphins, Mecole Hardman, who is now on the New York Jets, and Byron Pringle, who is now with the Washington Commanders. Compare that to last season when they went out in free agency and signed Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, traded for Kadarius Toney in the middle of the season, and relied upon cheap players such as Sky Moore and Justin Watson, and it's clear it doesn't really matter a ton who Patrick Mahomes has to throw the ball to. So my point is, if Ross truly does continue to showcase his talent into the regular season, it'll be very scary for the rest of the NFL to give Mahomes yet another really viable weapon who is also super cheap. But outside of Ross, I still think the Chiefs are fairly confident with the other wide receivers on their roster. They still have the best tight end in the league in Travis Kelce, but bringing back many of the same wide receivers they used last year in Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Sky Moore. Toney was another guy that really came on late for the Chiefs last season and has gotten a good amount of hype during this offseason to become a true wide receiver 1 for them. He got injured in minicamp. I don't think he's fully back yet for the Chiefs, but he is starting to slowly ramp up. I think he will be ready around the start of the season. And then MVS, I think we know what he is at this point. He's not going to be a game breaker, but he can be a solid, reliable deep threat and wide receiver for any team. And then as a rookie, Sky Moore shows some flashes himself as a dynamic player. In year number 2, another year of learning the offense, I expect him to be better this year as well. They did add another young player into the wide receiver core in the draft with Rashee Rice out of SMU. He's another guy with good speed. He's good after the catch, and he fits the Chiefs scheme perfectly. So because of the depth that they have in the receiver room, on top of having the best quarterback in the league, Ross has become more of a luxury for Kansas City, albeit a really fascinating one. But his story is truly inspiring, and I don't think a single person is rooting against him. Even just putting the injury to the side for a moment, just imagine how demoralizing it is going from a guaranteed first-round pick to an undrafted free agent due to something out of your control. Injuries just suck, but I'm glad Ross is finally healthy, and I'm definitely going to be watching what he can do this preseason and waiting to see if he can have an actual impact on this team in 2023. So mark your calendars for his debut. He will be playing this Sunday against the New Orleans Saints at 1 p.m. on NFL Network, and I expect him to be one of the biggest storylines from the entire game. But let me know what you think about Justyn Ross, his story, and if you think he is going to make the final 53-man roster. And also let me know what you think about the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole and how many games you predict them to win in 2023. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.